Well, I'm excited to be here with Naeem Fazal. Naeem, how are you doing?
Great, man. Great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm just
Awesome.
grateful for the chance to spend some time together and really excited for all that's happening there in Mosaic and Charlotte. And tell us a little bit about your journey in church planting and even your mission field there in Charlotte.
Yeah. So we've been going for 11 years now. So yeah, quite some time. And we actually launched from Charlotte. I mean, um, we were in Charleston, South Carolina, and then a church over there called Seacoast Church. I was a pastor there, and they helped us launch with actually a church planting organization called the ARC. It's I think Association of Related Churches, and so yeah, they helped us plant about 11 years ago. We are in the city of Charlotte, kind of a place where the city ends and the suburbs start. And so yeah, a church called Mosaic. We really moved actually because we wanted our main focus to be really about creating a community where we would celebrate diversity. It would be a community of faith that represented the city and also represented which a kind of a personal mission that we had to really bring a diverse group of people together and have church where it would be a representation of what church would look like in heaven, kind of thing. So.
Well, and I love the book you wrote about your personal experience about coming to faith, ex-Muslim. You can get more information at exmuslimbook.com. Tell me about some of the other people that you are seeing reached. Are you seeing people that have kind of walked away from Christianity and come back? Do you see others with your background? I'm sure Charlotte is a big growing city.
Yeah.
The diversity, I'm sure, is there. But what about spiritually? How are you reaching the folks that are there?
Yeah, so my background obviously is Muslim. So I grew up in a conservative Muslim home, parents are Muslim, and had a radical experience, came to faith. So I was in Kuwait. I'm actually Pakistani, kind of story, that's how it gets complicated. But I'm actually Pakistani, but my mom and dad migrated to Kuwait, and that's where we were born. I was born. And so then after the Gulf War, we came to the States and I had a radical experience with Christ. And what I mean by that, it was like kind of a vision of Jesus, kind of changed everything, kind of like the road to Damascus experience.
Wow.
And so my background, even though I was Muslim, I was in Kuwait, and Kuwait's really a melting pot. A lot of people might not know this, but about 60% of the population in Kuwait are immigrants, foreign nationals. And so I grew up with Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, a lot of Asians there, a lot of Filipinos there. And so it was very much a melting pot. And so this idea of really creating a diverse community or having different influences in my life where people just believe different things was normal, which I think really helped us and me to really create a community and create a space there that people could really belong before they believed. So it was a place where people feel more comfortable, and we try to make sure that a lot of the things we do at Mosaic reflects the fact that we live in a world, not just a city or a suburb. And so we have an international kind of flavor in a sense where we are trying to have a global conversation instead of a local conversation. So we are seeing people from different backgrounds, not just Muslim. In fact, actually, Muslims have the hardest time to come to Mosaic because they look at me and they go, this guy is either a traitor or this guy switched sides, and I don't know if I want to hear him, They'll probably hear me like online or something, but visiting, it takes a lot for them to come. I mean, I did have a conversation with this Kurdish guy last week, and he came up and he was just extremely interested, and we're going to have some coffee. And he definitely has a Muslim background. And so it's going to be interesting to see that. But it has been really great to really experience different cultures coming together. So we've seen, Buddhists and Hindus, and even Baptists, come to faith. So it's been great, man. It's been great.
That's fantastic. Well, as you've been for these 11 years planting the church and reaching out into Charlotte, what are some of the ways you've seen effectively connecting people, and like you said, helping them belong before they believe? What are you doing? What is your staff doing? What are the folks in your church doing to reach out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've seen is really cultivating a heart and a spirit for the other, for the guests. I think more than just our programming, sometimes I tend to fall into, because I'm a church guy and we do services, we fall into like, hey, let's make this, to use a term from the 90s, seeker sensitive, or let's make this seeker aware, or let's make this, or let's do popular contemporary songs. We've kind of abandoned that really, because believe that people really understand or feel your heart before they experience anything else. And that's really genuine. And because I've been in environments where it seems maybe contrived or seems fake, that you're trying to connect with me, you're trying to sell me something that you're not really like that, but you're doing or creating a church service for me, that because you want to not entertain me, but just kind of impress me. And so we've kind of really abandoned that to like really, man, like if we focus on loving each other well, then Jesus said that they'll know that you're my disciples. I mean, it will actually attract people to your community. And so I can't really pinpoint like, oh man, we did this outreach and we did this concert and none of that is really happening. What is happening is that, to quote someone who doesn't go to Mosaic, who is, but sends all her seeker or people who are not really committed to any kind of spirituality. I mean, she sends them to Mosaic. I mean, she's like, told me like last week, she's like, oh yeah, I don't tell them to come to my church because my church is, you don't want to come to my church, and I'm like, did you see what you're saying right there? Like, because my church is not set up for that. Basically, she's saying, but your church, and she said you can walk right in, and before anything, people feel like people can feel God. And I thought, wow. And I don't know how to teach that in a conference, but one of the things that I would say in a practical sense, that our spaces and our environments they don't seem religious. And what I mean by that is, like, if you walk into our lobby, which you've been to, and it looks like a gallery, it looks like a building that other people would walk into on any given day, maybe downtown. It seems inviting. I mean, there's a science behind it, and art behind creating spaces that invite versus distract people or convey that you're not welcome. Even people, how they decorate their houses. I mean, there's so much to it, but we've really spent some time on like figuring out, okay, when it comes to our Sunday morning spaces or our small groups or any event we do, let's just assume no one's a Christian. Let's that be the assumption, and then what would you do? And one of the phrases that we've used in our staff a whole lot, I believe I got it from Brene Brown, but I think she quoted someone else maybe, and I don't know. But the phrase we use is honoring the human presence. And we talk a lot about that. Like we go, okay, what does it mean to honor the human presence? Like there's a human here. Like you and if people walk into an environment, you get to do a face-to-face with this person. I mean, I think that there are studies that talked about the me and you relationship versus me and it relationship, where humans can make other humans feel like they're just not human. They just provide a service for me. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, your barista, you know, just get my order right. You know, the drive-through person, just get my order right. You know, you provide a service. And so you have this me and it, like it provides a service, and you lose the human,
Yeah.
element. And I think in churches we can do the same thing. We can really lose the human presence and go, okay, they're butts in seats. When we've
Right.
said that, we actually say this stuff. That we count them. Everybody's a number. How many people repped? How many people were in this group? How many people? So they're they can sometimes just lose the human value to us, I think, because we're just trying to control cattle. We say, we say all these things. And so what does it mean to, like, hey, this is a human, this is God's person created by God? What
Yeah.
does that mean? And so that's been helpful for us.
Absolutely. What it sounds like too, I mean, in many ways, you're removing barriers between one another and
Yeah,
between those who come and God. And so to
yeah,
me, when you walk into that space and you do feel welcome, you do feel comfortable. And like you said, as people come into the experience, and if they're not surprised you're talking about God,
yeah, right, yeah,
if they're coming into your building, they're not surprised you're singing songs to Jesus.
right, right.
But as you're doing so in a way that is, it makes sense. And I love that kind of more relational touch. It's the essence of love God, love people. I mean, really,
Right.
that's what we're supposed
Yeah.
to be doing.
Yeah. One of the phrases that is unique to us is this phrase called "hope for all," and we made it kind of a campaign which was tied to some expansion that we need to do in our church and building and all that. But it was also the essence of kind of like our heart behind what we do is we really believe that there's hope for all. And I think sometimes the message can come across like there's hope for some,
Hmm.
or there's hope for us, not necessarily you, because you don't have hope, but we have it, and when people hear that and they've seen it, we have it on, not that we just have it on walls, but we live that. I mean,
Right.
people walk in, they go, they really believe this, that there's hope for all. It doesn't matter my background, my lifestyle, what I believe, what I don't believe. There's a God who says, hey, there's hope for you. Like, my hope is for you, and I think that's been really, really helpful, and definitely removing barriers is so important. But I think the way we do this, I would say, is not necessarily like, hey, obviously we got to pay attention to language, because, sometimes, we can say
Sure.
things and that people don't understand and they don't have context. And you definitely, language is important. What we do, what we don't do, it's important. But, so coming from a different background and actually being a guy who was a Muslim, attending a church as a Muslim, dumbing down, not dumbing down, or taking the passion or the out of worship or out of of a gathering for the sake of the non-believer or for sake of me as a Muslim, it didn't really help me. And so what I'm saying is like, Muslims are not attracted to a seeker-sensitive church. They want to go in and they want to see what does it look like to. They're inspired by people who are passionately convinced
Hmm.
about either a God, a belief, Jesus. They want to see that. And so I think humans are. They want to know. I mean, my Hindu friend, who I reconnected with last year, I've known him for 20 years, he came to church with me, he came to a core meeting, very much like a family meeting, business meeting of a church, and But he was like, man, if this is church in India, I'd go to it.
Wow.
And we honored him. I honored him, and people were clapping for him, and and he moved from being Hindu to Sikh, and we celebrated that.
Hmm.
I mean, it was amazing because he was like, I'm not a Christian. Why are you celebrating? But we celebrated the fact that he's moving in his journey,
Yeah, that's great.
and just because we honor him doesn't mean that, that our faith is weakened by it. So I think what's key is people should understand, I think, like, and leaders and pastors should understand, is when you reach people who are different from you, doesn't mean that you need to hide your passion and your conviction about what you believe.
Yeah,
You just have to be careful on what your convictions are about. Like,
that's good.
don't be convicted about, don't be so committed to a certain lifestyle, committed to the message of Jesus, like the pure, like, hey, for God so loved the world that he gave his son,
Right.
not to condemn it, but to save it. And be convinced of that. People are drawn to that, man. So.
Absolutely. Well, and I think what you've done and what you're recommending, obviously, is move out of the center things that don't belong in the center. Like,
Right.
if we're Jesus centered, and some of these other maybe their values that don't rise to the level of conviction, or certainly not a litmus test for community.
Yeah.
What I love even about your story about your friend, kind of on his journey, what you're doing is you're valuing the process of discipleship, kind of like what we said at Mosaic in Los Angeles, pre-evangelism discipleship.
Yeah.
There's progress even before you say yes to cross that line of faith. What are other elements that either help people cross that line of faith or grow in their walk to where they're inviting to have that passion? What are you seeing that's helping your people grow?
Yeah, we had a real. So we have a leadership team, and we call them navigators, and so about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had a pretty intense conversation about altar calls, and we have a diverse group, and so one guy was like, we have to do an altar call every Sunday. I mean, people are there, they're going to make a decision, we leave them hanging, we don't close the deal. And I get that. And they said, we have to do that. And we need to do that. And people need to, you got to pray with people to receive Jesus. And I believe that. I believe in moments like that, and us being responsible for helping people find faith. But I mean, I just said this. I just said, hey, listen, I get it. And I believe in that. Let me just tell you where I'm coming from. I didn't meet Jesus in church. I met him in my room.
Right.
I didn't pray a prayer like a little kid repeating after another person. Like, I met him, and there was a conversation, and it was real, and it was like, I didn't go down the Romans road. I didn't say a little this diddly.
Right.
I didn't, sign a card, put it in, this and that. I didn't do that. I'm not saying those are not important. I'm saying I just didn't do that.
Right.
So my default is, I'm going to tell you about Jesus, and if you're serious, you should go meet him.
Yeah.
Like this act, like, I'm not proposing this as, this is the thing we need to do. But I think that as future leaders and pastors, we should stop treating people as kids. They don't need to be handheld. They don't need to recite this prayer after me. Because I do that to my 9-year-old, maybe my 5-year-old. I don't do it to a 50-year-old. But because we think sometimes they have to get the wording right for it to work, it's like this, hey, if they don't get the wording right, you're not going to get it. You're going to jinx the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's the weirdest thing. And I think, again, I'm not proposing we don't do altar calls and all that. So what I do in our services is I have a conversation about what we're doing, and then I always lead it to, hey, maybe your one decision, or what your God is saying to you this morning for some of you is he's been talking to you, and you need to come to a full on, you need to seek him out right now. So I just want to pray for you, because maybe today you need to make that decision. So I just kind of pray for them. And then right after that, we do a song, and then someone comes up and says, hey, if there's a commitment, if there's a question, here's a card, come meet us. So there's a follow through on that.
Well, what I like about that is your service on Sunday is certainly a point of contact, but what you're really describing is an acknowledgement that God is pursuing people and he is moving in their
We
life.
say this, yeah.
It could be a Sunday morning, but it could
Yeah.
be in their room, a vision of Jesus like you had, a supernatural experience, but not assume that God is not at work, that it's all up to us, but we're joining him in the pursuit of the people he's created, right?
Yeah. And see, here's the thing. I mean, if you've ever watched the Tony Robinson show, or his environments or talks or weekends, the amount of science and art and that is available to manipulate human emotion is staggering. Like, meaning there's a way to rally and hype up and get people to feel something and commit.
Right.
Emotionally.
Right.
And I just feel like when you meet Jesus, it has to be a very spiritual, divine moment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying emotions are not attached to it, but they can't lead the way. Because if they lead the way, it's like the way I was a young adult pastor for several years, and I heard someone say, hey, listen, single ladies or guys, hey, whatever you get them with, you keep them with.
Oh, goodness.
So it's like this: if you get them with your makeup and the way you look and you're gonna keep them with that.
Right.
Because if you stop doing that, they're out. And I think it's true. It's there's some truth to it. Like, if people are sold an emotion and they bought into Jesus because of an emotion, and that emotion goes away, then the relationship with Jesus goes away.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, right? We've seen people go, yes, yes. I mean, youth camp, man. I mean, I was a youth pastor too. So
Right.
kids getting saved every week, the same kid,
Right.
I'm like, dude, you're good, But I think there's something to be really um, thought through a little bit. I was having a conversation with one of our pastors, and it led to a conversation about getting people to ask questions, the right questions, versus giving them the right answers. And it really, this is connected to the way we disciple. So, I met with a guy a couple of days ago, and we reach people who are like, no religious background, or really a terrible religious background. I mean, they're living in whatever. I mean, so this idea of like, hey, don't live together, don't sleep together before marriage, no, don't this, don't that. They have no idea, no concept of it. And so he began telling me, we're just starting the relationship conversation. He was like, he said, I've got a lot of questions, and like, not that he was saying, tell me what to do and I'll do it. But he wanted to know, like, so morally, what is right? Can I do this? I mean, I've been living with my girlfriend for 6 years, or 4 years, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I had a moment, Eric. I had a moment where I was like, I'm going to do the whole Jesus thing with him. I am not going to tell him what to do.
Right. Right.
I'm not. Like, I'm going to get him to hunger and thirst for answers and develop a relationship with Jesus.
Great.
The Holy Spirit. Because if I'm the answer guy, then
Right.
he just knows, okay, so I'm not supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to give 10%, and I'm not, and yada, yada, yada. And so he'll get a mental list of 5 to 10 things that he has to do. And that will determine his relationship with God.
Right. Right. And then it's works-based. Then it's not really the gospel.
It's not. We just lost it. I just lost it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so I said, hey, let's talk about that. And, but let's talk about, your relationship with the God who wants to have a relationship with you. And if we can get people to hear and help them hear God for themselves, then we don't have to be the answer people.
Yeah, that's good.
So, it's tricky, it's tough, but, and sometimes people just need hey, this is what the scriptures say,
Right. Yeah, of course. Knowing when to do that. And for someone
Right.
who's not a believer to ask them to live by, a standard that is for believers, it undermines the whole process.
Yeah. It really, and it's like you said, I mean, I don't think we realize how much it undermines it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you see someone growing in their faith, they're learning to hear God's voice, and they want to be a leader at Mosaic Charlotte, what is required to become a leader in your community?
Well, it depends how badly we need leaders.
That's the honest answer.
That's the real answer.
Yeah.
But because of the different positions of leadership, where you're in charge of preschool curriculum, or you're the leader of the parking team, one is heavy content. You got to get your stuff together, all that. One is you don't really have to do that. You could be still figuring out what you believe, what you don't, and just be great at people skills and parking cars, So we allow that, like, hey, he's a leader, and she's a leader, or he's a leader, and he's a leader, but it's not the same. It's just not the same,
Right.
Just like the guy, the standard for me is different than the standard for some of the other staff, honestly.
Sure.
It just is. It's just different responsibility, But what we've done, what we did 2 years ago, is we hand-picked or invite-only people, and we said, we want to journey with you, or we would like you, or to be a part of a leadership learning group for a year, once a month.
Right.
And would you consider doing that? And so the last 2 years, we've taken like 50, 60 people, and we take them for the whole year, once a month, and would develop leadership in them. And so it starts off with basic theology and then it has all the other things like gifts, assessment, leadership, values, what does it mean, theology, the whole thing. But it's every month they get dipped. And then out of that, part of it also is graduation of, okay, so now what are you going to lead? What are you going to do? Not that we want all of them to lead in every way, because some people, they go through that and we think they might have potential, but season of life and things happen and they can't really do it. We just believe that if we invest in leaders, raising leaders, then it's a win for us if they don't necessarily lead in our context, but lead in their office, or they lead in their business.
Oh, that's great.
So that is our intense leadership. And we do have like your basic where we have this, we have right after each service, we call it the 10-minute party. We got it from Mosaic LA back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't even think anybody does that anymore. We do. And, but that is your basic, after every service, a touch point for anybody, and sometimes it's mostly new people, or people who heard me or heard someone and they like it and they have questions of their faith. I mean, we have a lot of people who you can kind of listen to them and go, they're not sure what they believe, but they just have a touch point. Hey, hello. We give them a shirt that says "Hope for All,"
That's great.
and then from there they get invited to this thing called the after party because we just want to go with that. And the after party is basically a dinner at Sunday night, and we talk about, we tell stories. We ask them, tell them their faith story. We tell our story, kind of go through what we are all about in Mosaic, and then evaluate them, like what is your next step. Some people go, oh, this church is not for me. All right, cool. Some go, okay, I want to start volunteering or something. I want to get plugged in, or I want to go to a small group. And then we have this thing called Next, which right after that is really about, like, okay, they're ready to be, in one sense, like assimilated, where they need basic theology conversation, or they need, okay, they're ready to go. They're seasoned. They're good. They come from a church, sister church. They're ready to be to serve. And so we kind of take them through kind of a volunteer track there.
Yeah, that's great.
But out of that, the leadership track is an invite only.
I see.
That is not we don't publicize that.
Right.
No, just so.
I do like what you're describing, because it sounds very much that it requires a one-on-one, get to know the person, figure out what they need, what their next step is. Again, very process oriented, kind of taking people where they are and calling them out to where God wants them to be. That's fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Well, keep up the great work there.
Thanks, man.
It's great to see you, Naeem, and
yes,
tell the family hello for me.
I will, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for this opportunity, bro.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, see ya.
All right, I'm going to hit